All right, so now that we have that out of the way, let's go back to Kylie and get some more math questions.
Right,
or
math.
just questions in general.
Let's see. This is a fun fraction one. Looks like 6 1/4 minus 3 1/20 equals what?
Minus 3 1/20. I can take this question. Fractions are, I don't want to say my favorite, but I like fractions. They're pretty good. One of the things when we are adding or subtracting fractions, I'll talk about fractions first, and then I'll talk about mixed numbers. But one of the things that we need to make sure of is that we have a common denominator. I'll show you kind of an example here. Let's say I had, I'll just use this as an example, 1/4 minus 1/20. Think of it as this, 1/4, and then take away 1/20. 20th. Hang on. 20. Spelling's not my thing. Okay, so 1/20. This is kind of like saying something like 1 orange, or maybe not one. One might be a little difficult to conceptualize. But let's say I said 5 oranges minus 2 apples. Our denominator, and that word denominator, or to denominate something, means to name. And so the denominator is naming what type of object we're referring to, or what size of object we're referring to. The numerator, meaning to numerate or say what number it is. So our numerator tells us how many we have, and then our denominator tells us of what. And just like if we were doing 5 oranges minus 2 apples, we can't really take away apples from oranges. The name of these things are different, and so we can't really think about what that really is doing. So what we would like to do, and what is important with fractions, you might already know this, but we need to have common denominators. And meaning if we were taking 5 oranges minus 2 oranges, we can do that. That's not a problem. And so if we had the same name, then we wouldn't have a problem with taking away 1/20 from a 1/4. So that's our goal, is to have the same denominator. We really need to have the same denominator. So back to our 1/4 and 1/20. What we need to do to find a common denominator, actually maybe one of the things we want to do is find a least common denominator. So when we change fractions, equivalency, I can find equivalent fractions by multiplying my numerator and denominator by the same number. And what we want to see is which number our denominators can both turn into. So this denominator 4, if I multiplied it by, it could be 4. If I multiplied it by 2, it could be 8. If I multiplied it by 3, it could be 12. Times 4, it could be 16. Times 5, it could be 20. So you actually can see that a common denominator already would be 20. I already have one of my fractions as 20ths. So if I could just turn my 4ths into 20ths, then I would have common denominators. So this 1/4, as I mentioned, if I multiplied it by 5, I could get a denominator of 20. Now, when we multiply numerators and denominators, we need to make sure we do the same to the top as the bottom. And what I want to point out is this. If I'm multiplying by 5/5, what I'm really multiplying this fraction by is 1. 5/5 is just equal to 1. And so that's why I'm allowed to multiply the numerator and denominator by the same thing, because we know that when we multiply anything by 1, we're not changing the value of it. So when I do this, I end up getting, so 1 times 5 numerator, which is now 5, and then 4 times 5 denominator is now 20th. So I know that 1/4 is equivalent to 5/20. So I'm going to rewrite my subtraction problem so that I'm in the common denominator. I have common denominators. So instead of saying 6 and 1/4, I'm now going to say 6 and 5/20. And then, and then I'm going to take away from that 3 and 1/20. Now we can look at these separately. In this case, 5/20, and then we take away 1/20. That's not too much of a problem. We're left with 4, and then our denominator stays the same. Just like if I had 5 oranges, and I'm taking away 3 oranges, I'm still left with 2 oranges. The name of those objects doesn't change. Then I can just, the whole numbers, 6 minus 3, I can just do that like I would do regular subtraction of whole numbers. And I'm left with 3 and 4/20. Now, one of the things we would also want to do is simplify this fraction. So just like I can multiply by the same number over itself, I can also divide by a number over itself, the same number over itself, because dividing by 1 doesn't change our value. So what I want to be thinking of is what number can I divide both 4 and 20 by? And we would look at factors for that, and 4 is a factor of both 4 and 20. So I'm going to divide this fraction by 4 over 4. And again, this 4 over 4 is just equivalent to 1 whole. So I'm going to do 4 divided by 4. That gives me 1. And then 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. So 4/20 is equivalent to 1/5. So writing this answer in simplest form, we're not going to touch our whole number because that we cannot simplify. But I can simplify this 4/20 into 1/5. And so when I subtract 6 and 1/4 minus 3 and 1/20, I end up getting 3 and 1/5, simplified answer. So hopefully that helps. Was that clear?
Yeah, it's a really good explanation. I like the comparison with the like fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.